Hello and welcome. I'm Master Lama Rasaji, and this is our Monday edition of Rasaji Speak. So happy to be with you. I hope you had a great weekend. Boy, I'm happy to be over my situation, and things are moving forward, and we're taking no prisoners. I can tell you that for sure. It's not too late to sign up for Master David's phenomenal music class. If you were in Lake Tahoe or if you were in Tucson, you will know in the last couple tours that Buddy Howdy, the music was off the chart. It really, really was. And a lot of it stems from Master David's music class. So if you get a chance, remember, if you're a teacher, it's part of your package for free. It's just an added benefit. So check it out. And if you can't check it out live, start checking out in your back office for music memberships and teachers memberships. It's automatically in your back office. Every class is recorded, and man, the value of that is incredible with what he's doing. Today's subject matter is, where is the tree of life? Discover its hidden spiritual meaning, right? The tree of life. Well, let's see what we can find out about the tree of life. The tree of life, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, are both introduced in Genesis chapter 2. Tree of life is described as being in the midst of the Garden of Eden. And the tree of knowledge of good and evil is also mentioned as being in the garden. God warns Adam eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil would result in death. Now, I want you to think about that. So, is there a connection between the tree of knowledge and academia world and the overstimulation of the left brain? I want you to think about this. The tree of life, where both brains come together. And with the tree of life, is there a connection between the priesthood of Melchizedek, and is the tree of knowledge of good and evil a connection to the priesthood of Levi, which dies? Interested in the funeral of my mother and sister, the pastor was talking about that Jesus was the Lord of life and death. Was he really? Because that's not really what St. Paul claims in Hebrew. When he calls out Melchizedek, right, in chapters 4, 5, and 6 in Hebrews, and says that he's of the lineage of like Enoch, an antediluvian patriarch. Well, we know what happened to Enoch. He was a priest of righteousness, and at 365 years, God takes him to heaven for 100 years of earth time and then sends him back. And when he sends him back, he says, I'm going to take up a whole city to heaven with me. Wow. He starts talking about the tree of life. So St. Paul is making a connection. Then St. Paul says this Melchizedek, with the word chi in the middle of the name, had neither father nor mother, nor beginning nor end of days, but like unto the Son of God, continued in a priesthood of forever. And he also in Hebrews names Jesus his high priest. I think his high priest of life is what he's talking about, right? I think his high priest of life is what that he is doing, right? So I want you to think about that in any way possible that you can. All right, so he warns Adam and Eve if they partake of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, then they could taste death. Paul, again in Romans, says, in a twinkling of an eye, we shall all be changed, but not all will taste death. Buddy Howdy again. Lama G has tasted the stench of death the last several weeks, and I want to apologize to some of you out there because I know most of you have an empathetic heart. And I know that you know Lama G and his family have been going through a tough time. Part of the eulogy and testimony that I gave Friday on my mother and my sister's behalf, every word I cried. But I went on for 10 minutes. And as I went on, I got more stronger, delivered a profound message. Mita turned around and said, there wasn't a dry eye in the place, Lama G, when you were talking. I knew that that was the beginning of healing of this whole congregation, which included my family. We had friends that were there that we were swimming with when we were like 14, 15, 16, and 17. That's over 50 years ago. Isn't that incredible to have friends that would show up like that? I had an attorney, one of the most successful attorneys, that was one of our swimmers. He said, I have been to probably 40 or 50 funerals in the last 10 or 20 years. I had never been to a funeral like this where the celebration was amazing. And so I know the crying and the releasing of the emotions is the beginning of healing. And you have to let go in order to let God. And in that concept, it's very, very powerful for us to understand that. See, your emotional body is the outward body to your spirit, as your physical body is the outward body to your mind. When you start to clean the mind, you clean the body. When you start to clean the body, you clean the mind. It's also true with our emotional body. If you hold on to all your emotions, if you're scared to death to feel things, then you can't feel chi because you're blocking the chi itself. And you'll have pancreas issues, you'll have stomach issues because you're blocking that chakra in the stomach. And the tears release that. And you must do that. You guys know Lama G's been very vulnerable with you guys last 4 or 5 years. If I'm upset about something, I'll be the first one to cry. But I also have such a clear energy body. That's why I'm able to pick up on people, even people who try to hide things from me, whether it's people in the field or teachers or staff or whatever. You can't hide. The most practical thing people look at me is, I want Lama G to be Lama G when I want Lama G to be Lama G. They don't understand. I'm Lama G 24/7. I can't hide. And I can't speak a lie. If you really understand our order is the light of truth order, even as an adept, Mita can't tell a lie. She can't tell a lie. She couldn't be an adept. That's why it's much easier to get a teaching certification than an adept certification, let alone Master David can't lie. We might tell you things you don't like. We might tell you things you don't want to believe. But one thing's for sure, we're speaking the light of truth. Are you ready to deal with it? Are you ready to handle it? That's in the tree of life. If you don't get back to the truth of God, you can never get back to the tree of life. And according to Melchizedek, according to Enoch, and according to St. Paul, right? You want to be a high priest, you need to get back to the tree of life and relinquish the tree of good and evil. Embrace life. And oh, yeah, there's only life in God. Really. There really is only life in God. There is no death in God. That comes from the tree of good and evil. That's what scriptures tells us. Go back and read your Bible. God be with us. I'll see you tomorrow on the Tuesday's edition of Rasaji Speaks. God bless.